Good morning, Juan Andres,
Good morning, Dan.
and thank you very much for having accepted our invitation.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thanks.
Could you please tell us about your inner relationship with your psychic being? Is it something that is constantly there? Is it something that you have to relate? How does it work for you?
Yes, I think this is in a way very connected to my experience in Auroville and what process of my life started happening here. I think I was someone that was relying a lot in control, a mental control of my existence, of my safety. And I didn't have much trust in what was not controlled by me mentally.
Okay.
I think when I moved here to Auroville, I started recognizing, let's say, synchronicities, logic behind things, not even logic, it's like, again, mostly synchronicity, things that were beyond even what I wanted, but was coming into what I really needed. And there was a space of realizing that I needed to do less. I needed to control less. And I needed just things to manifest in a way that I could be receptive for them. For me, this was very connected with humility, with this, like really letting go of this control was really starting to experience to some extent this surrendering of, okay, I cannot control, there's nothing for me to control, and seeing the meaning of things unfolding in a way that just made sense even afterwards. And it's not about how it feels, how nice it feels. It's just gives you this real clarity that is what needs to happen. And that was kind of coming more and more in a more clear way. So that was the discovery of that process within me.
Does it mean that before arriving in Auroville, this inner guidance or this connection was completely absent, or was it hidden to some extent?
I think I was not listening to it.
Okay.
I was not receptive to that. I think that's always there. I think it's part of what we have in our being, but if you don't listen, you're not going to connect to that somehow. That's what's my experience to some extent.
And so when you started to be in Auroville and to be more connected with this this inner guidance, how let's say relief or more qualities did it bring to your life? Is it there is before and after? How could you describe?
Yeah, I think it was a big before and after, because I think before I was, again, as I told you, so much connected with this idea of being in control, even being like bulletproof, even being able to handle anything that would happen to me. And without realizing, I was completely blocking my receptivity that is connected with my vulnerability as well, and my openness and my receptivity to all the subtleties of life. And I think this is what changed majorly the quality of my experience, because I could allow myself to connect with these subtleties, to connect with my own different states, my own sensitivities, and realizing that I didn't need to be afraid of that, because that was actually opening myself to a whole experience of life and not just a controlled experience of life. So I let go. It was such a big relief. It was such a big joy and celebration of, wow, I don't need to be controlling.
And also energy-wise, maybe, no? To put all this energy in the control.
Yeah. So it was less energy consuming, and at the same time, it was more energy coming in other ways. And it was this beautiful space of, like the synergy of life was starting to be understood more. And I was in a way less afraid, because I think the control is trying to overcome our fears.
So how did it happen? Was it through some specific experiences being in Auroville, or was it a new complete shape of your life?
Yeah, I think there were some chapters into that, because it was connected, I think, with my own process of coming here, of reconnecting or connecting for the first time, let's say, with myself, with who I was, away from the structures of my own identity. I think a big part of being in a place that doesn't hold you accountable to what you have developed so far in your life, a society, a family, like all these more psychological aspects of how much you're supposed to be the person in this case that others know you from, allowed me to start connecting with that identity that didn't need to have a particular description to some extent. Mm-hmm. So I was letting go or transcending my own attachment with my identity, and as a person, like in a personality, like a character, and that started connecting me more with who am I just now here and what's happening, and realizing that my sense of self was becoming much more in the present and less about my experience and my history. And then basically, so yes, about my experience, but not my history, basically. Mm-hmm. So this is the concrete thing. And I think that openness led me to open up to different experiences. I had something very crucial, and you were mentioning some things like breakthroughs or things like that, that happened after, I would say, a couple of years of already being here. I did a retreat. You can say some kind of a vipassana, but it was in a Portuguese community. So it was 10-day meditation retreat with some guidance as well. And then there was like a bigger breakthrough in that sense of something really shattering in terms of, you can call it the ego, you can call it the control, but it was when I really connected with that sense of openness and vulnerability that allowed me to even just weep for several minutes, but not from any particular emotion, but from the release of, I don't need to be controlling that. I don't need to, again, being avoiding living. I think in my mental conception, I was not getting this idea of letting go of the ego, because I was just connected with the idea of you need to let go of the ego to finally let go of your suffering. But I was realizing, well, I have a very functional ego. I'm not suffering.
Yeah.
So why do I need to do anything with that?
Is the need to do so.
So then I was there, and people, like even these teachers, these people were trying to encourage me to try to go there and to see what was beneath that mask, that personality. And I think in that breakthrough moment, what really happened was that I was not anymore trying to let go of the ego for the sake of not suffering anymore. I realized that if I didn't remove myself from that mask, I would never be able to fully love and to fully connect with life. And that revelation, literally, like taking away this veil of controlling life, was what really released that sense of control. And I think that was the biggest breakthrough for me, because then I started even honoring my own sensitivity, honoring my own capacity of connecting with these subtleties, what I was saying before. And that was like the major before and after, I would say. Mm-hmm. And then when I came back to Auroville, it was just the confirmation of that, and everything that was happening around me was a reflection of that receptivity and that openness in life.
Okay, so could we say to some extent that this inner guidance was constantly within you from the very beginning, but at some point something happened that led you to allow things to express freely? No? Would you?
I would say, for me, that inner guidance or the psychic being is connected very much with that feeling of what feels right, that is not necessarily nice. You know, it's not the sensation of it. It just feels nice.
But more related to truth.
Exactly. No? That's the key principle, right? So it's truthful. Is that, and this is why I've been connecting to become like a truth seeker after. So thank you for bringing that concept. But it's about that, is what is truthful and what is meaningful and what needs to go there. So is this guidance of, this is the way, this is what you need to explore. And it's kind of, it's showing me the next stage that I'm prepared to live. Okay. And understanding the gentleness of understanding to which extent I'm prepared to experience that. So starting to develop that trust, to be exposed to the truth as much as I can, according to my state in this life, let's say.
Mm-hmm. Mm. So does it mean that it's constantly clear now, or is it there are still some some struggle within yourself, that you have some tendency to do something and you think by intuition, or could you elaborate a little bit how this clarity or this truth comes within you?
For me, yeah, it can be connected to intuition to some extent, and I think it has a process because, again, I'm a psychologist, I'm very mental, I was raised by two psychologists, like I have all these structures in my mind still that allow me to observe things. So I'm doing...
Including within yourself.
Exactly.
No? Yeah.
So that is the what I'm trying, or I keep on developing, is that access to that. So my belief is it's always there. The inner guidance is always there. You just have to listen. And now, what are my patterns that are blocking that receptivity? The more I observe that, I realize, because I can observe, oh, in this moment I was not as aware, I was not as receptive. What could have happened? So in that case, I also apply some of the psychology to observe, why was I acting not in such an aware state, or I was acting in a more defensive state, or I was acting in a self-protecting mode, that it doesn't allow me to necessarily be receptive and trust fully.
Okay, so could you say that it's your capacity to distinguish more and more clearly what is happening within you that lead you to choose what direction you would have to take?
Yes, I think that exercise is becoming accumulative. So I become more and more receptive, and it's almost like, again, have all these psychological terminologies, but it's almost like having positive reinforcement. So the more you realize that you have an experience and it brings you to that truth, it brings you to that joy of life, it brings you to that openness, the more I validate that, the more I trust that. So the more I'm doing it, the more I'm trusting it, and the more I let myself be connected with that much more, and the channel, it becomes wider and wider.
Yeah. So that it becomes a natural practice to some extent, no? Could we say that you had to acknowledge some experiences that was different from the past, and then by acknowledging and allowing things to come, it became natural, no? To some. So what could be the next step, the next development in this practice for you?
Yeah, for me, it's becoming more and more that. It's like when there is less of a gap of when I'm from the receptivity to the psychic being, let's say, or to the divine in that sense, and when I'm more in that. Like I have seen moments in which I'm in a state of frequency that I'm just that. There's no separation of that. It's not me, the person being guided by something else. For me, it's the more I reach that oneness is when I feel like I'm in the flow of life. I am the flow of life.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that experience of non-separation is kind of the next level, like to be less separated from that.
Okay. And this kind of natural practice, can it last for hours, for days? I mean, or is there some pulling back from your own nature, so that sometimes bring you back, no?
Yeah, I would say like every day there's a moment of awareness that I was not aware, even if it's a small moment. And the interesting thing is that there is the awareness of not being aware. So there's always this kind of constant awareness again.
And
so
wisdom, witness of what is happening.
Yeah.
Back to the period of your life when you were not in Auroville, would you say that this inner guidance was completely veiled, or you did not allow things to happen, or how did you build this personality by putting things aside? How would you say that?
Yeah, it's interesting because in a way, for example, even my father, my grandmother, I remember they used to tell me that I always had like this, like a guiding light or a good star or like something protecting me or something.
So it was the other people who recognize within you, no? But exactly. you were just, no, it's not for me.
There you go. It's like, I don't know, I'm just being lucky, I'm being privileged. Yeah. So I think there was this guidance still. But again, I was not listening. I was not giving it credit that it was something that I could relate to directly. I was just more into, okay, I just have a lucky strike here and there. So I think there was always something, and I've been always feeling that sense of, you can say, protection, but it's mostly guidance. It's like what is happening in every stage of life, and there's some guidance there for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But I just was not listening that clearly. Maybe in other ways, maybe I was even a bit in denial of how connected I was. Maybe I was afraid of even acknowledging that connection. I think I could have been in this state of, quitting before getting fired kind of attitude. It's like, I don't want to acknowledge something that then I have to be responsible of or to take agency on, because I don't want to feel that that would ever leave me even. Mm-hmm. So also there can be, again, these controlling elements of fear, of just wanting to be based on whatever I can assure myself that I can control. Mm-hmm. Even though there were many things that I maybe couldn't explain necessarily, but I was not looking.
Yeah. So would you say that now your life is more sweet, or more you feel more powerful? Or how could you define your life today following this path?
Yeah, first of all, I feel more alive. I feel much more integrated. I feel like my sense of presence is much wider. I'm again sensitive to much more subtleties from within, from without. I am in this trust of experiencing every day. And there's a different sense of connection with just the existence of the universe in that sense. And it brings a lot of ease. It brings, again, it's always connected with humility. I always say, like, it could be the last moment I'm in this space. Like, even when I'm feeling very much connected, I'm always saying this can end in any moment. For me, it's like humility is a very big part of it, because for me, it's like that. Any moment can be the last one of feeling wherever I'm feeling. So I don't want to, again, rely on that or become arrogant because of that. It's the opposite. It's like if I can have the privilege of being connected as much as I can, this is the moment to cherish.
Yeah.
And to be in that. So there's this trust, this ease, also a lot of humility. And peace overall. Yeah.
And what about your relationships with other people? Would you say that to be in this conscious state of mind, and is it some kind of influence? Would you say that there is a contagious aspect?
Well, it's very connected, actually. Like we were talking before about truth, and again, truth has become like such a guiding principle for me, that I'm really seeing how much for people and in relationships, the aspect of truth and authenticity is a core element for us to connect more with our own guiding source in that sense, And this is why actually synchronically I developed a relationships model that is based on the truth, that is called the authentic self relationships model. And the guiding principle is truth, is to create a truth-based relationships culture. So this is very much for me the way that I was, again, dealing with all my relationships, and at the same time, what I was seeing in my work in psychotherapy, how much for many people, this is a very core base. That is the way we deal with ourselves, how we find our own truth, and how we can connect with others through the truth and by the truth and for the truth. So it's been a very core element for me and my relationships. And that's supporting constantly that aspect of the receptivity and what happens within me, and to be more open even for that guiding source. Yeah.
So if we now are aiming to give some advices to our audience, for people who are struggling with feeling something but not have the capacity to unveil or to live completely through that, what kind of advice could you tell them? Could you give to them?
Yeah, like what I see a lot with people is that there's a lot of fear of having what I call a reality check. I think we can get very stuck in our own experience and our own judgments of how we evaluate our own experience. So let's say I have something, like people have an idea, they can see that there's something there maybe that they could allow this guidance to have. Maybe everybody, I think, has had glimpses of that. But sometimes there's this fear of even trusting that.
Okay.
So I think it all needs to start by feeling safer and finding out what do you need to feel safer in that very moment. Anxiety takes us to the future. Mm-hmm. So it's instead of being concerned with what can happen wrong, we can come back to a moment of safety right here, right now. What do I need now to feel safer? And then what can I connect with? What is happening? And then you can scan a bit of yourself. And then this usually is connected a lot with the way you relate to yourself or the way you relate to others. And in this case, I would encourage this part of, if it's with others especially, to have reality checks, to be able to come to someone and just share.
So reality check is just to pause, no? To just pause what is happening and just allow things to come freely, or
in a way that's the reality check you can have with yourself.
Yeah.
And then the other reality checks you can do with people, that for me is to express, how are you feeling when something happened? What are the stories in your heads? And basically to have a moment of assessing what you are imagining with what can be happening with another person. So that can happen in relationships. With yourself, this reality check could be more connected with what happens when I say yes to this guidance? What happens when I reject it? So it's a little bit of having a little own inner research of, if I see this glimpse of something, can I see what happens when I'm open to that, when I'm not? How does it change the way I feel, the way I connect with life, the way I feel present, the way I just feel in my body? So sometimes it's just as simple as that little movement of yes and no. And then you see what happens. And I think this is, if you do it from safety, this can allow you to expand in ways you have not explored before, because then you're not allowing your preconceptions to guide your lifestyle. Because instead of saying, no, but this is nonsense, or this doesn't exist, or this is that, what if you dare to explore the unknown?
Yeah.
Because to expand your consciousness, you will explore the unknown. And this is it requires courage. But again, to go there, you need to feel safe first.
And to find a new basis from which we can build and for ourselves.
Exactly. Yeah. And that is kind of the baseline safety to allow yourself to go into the adventure of consciousness, right?
Okay. You have something to add more eventually, or you feel complete?
Yeah, for me it feels good. If you have anything else to ask, I'm open, but otherwise I feel complete also.
Thank you, Juan Andres.
Yes, my pleasure.